G'day you mob, how's it going? Welcome to this episode of Aussie English. I'm your host Pete, and today I have the absolute pleasure of interviewing Martin Ruffo. He is an Argentinian who moved to Australia about 12 years ago and has set up a life in Australia. So we talk about what that process was like, why he moved to Australia, how he moved to Australia, how he met his wife, who is an Australian. He has two, I think maybe three children who are Australian as well. And yeah, I talk about his life and what it was like getting used to life in Australia. So without any further ado, guys, I give you Martin Ruffo. G'day guys, welcome to this episode of Aussie English. Today I have Martin Ruffo, I say it right, with the rolled R, the trilled R.
Exactly right. Thank you, Pete.
Does it ever get strange hearing people say Ruffo in Australia?
I wish it was Ruffo. It's Ruffo. I'm Ruffo here.
Ah, Ruffo.
Ruffo. Yeah. So my poor kids. I don't care, but my poor kids every time they call at the school, they're like, Thomas Ruffo, please come to, and they roll their eyes, going, no Ruffo.
Yeah, that was me. I was always Smyson, Peter Smyson, and I'm always like, there's two S's, god damn it. It should be an I sound. Smithson. So anyway, mate, I decided to get you on today because you recently interviewed me for inspiringed.com, and that interview should be out both on Inspiring Ed's Facebook page as well as hopefully my podcast and YouTube by the time this episode comes out. But you work for Inspiring Vacations, I take it.
That's right. Yes, correct. Yeah, I work for Inspiring Vacations. I'm a product manager there. So essentially helping the team here put our products together. So working with the teams on the ground to put our trips together and sell them to our clients. Yeah.
Brilliant. So give us a bit of background into how you ended up working for Inspiring Vacations, because when we were doing the interview and I got to know you a bit before the interview, I found out that you were from Argentina originally. You moved to Australia, migrated here, and you've been here for about a decade or so. But tell us about that sort of story in a nutshell. What's it been like?
In a nutshell. Okay, look.
Well, it can be a big nutshell. It doesn't have to be a small nutshell.
No, it's a pretty small nutshell. Anyway, look, I'm 18 years old in Argentina, having to decide what to do with my future. I got absolutely no idea what to do. I knew I liked traveling, so I decided to study tourism. I did a degree in tourism. One thing led to another. I was working at a youth hostel in Buenos Aires. I got a contact to start working as a tour leader in South America, in Peru, Brazil, Argentina, for a company called G Adventures, Gap at the time, which works with Intrepid Travel here in Australia. I flew from Buenos Aires to Peru. I was a tour leader for nearly a couple of years. In one of my last trips, I got to know a girl, and and there's always a bit of that story. And I met this girl. We lived together in England. We decided to get married. We had to decide whether to go to Argentina or Australia. I had never been to Australia.
She was Australian, or was she from Great Britain?
She still is. Yes. So,
she still is. That hasn't changed.
No. So so we decided to come to Australia. I was a bit hesitant at the moment. I had never been here, but everyone could only say beautiful things about Australia, and I came here, and I absolutely loved Australia from the first day that I came here. With all the challenges and all the issues challenges of living abroad and away from your family. You couldn't ask for a better country than Australia to live in.
So how would you compare it to Argentina? And I think we sort of had that discussion a little bit when I was chatting to you prior to the interview, where I was like, Argentina is meant to be the really European country of South America, right? It's meant to be amazing. And you were like, So how would you sort of describe Argentina to someone like myself who's relatively ignorant of the differences between the other Spanish-speaking countries in South America, and how would you describe what it's like to live there and why you would decide to migrate to somewhere like Australia and how it compares?
Look. First up, the decision to migrate was not because of what it's like to live in Argentina. I guess it was more because the amount of possibilities that you get here in Australia compared to what you get
Yeah.
here in Australia versus Argentina. Um, Argentina, Argentina is complicated, and I think if you ask any Argentinian, the first thing that they will say is that Argentina is complicated. Yes, we are a very European country, but we got a lot of immigration from Spain and Italy and a lot of other European countries during the world wars. Unfortunately, we seem to have done a really good job at getting the worst part of each of those cultures. So we got the worst, we got the worst part of the Spaniards, we got the worst part of the Italians, and we put them all together in an Argentinian culture. So, look, how do they compare to Australia to Argentina? In a way, Australia is a very Latin country. The way we relate to mates, the mateship, friendships, how close we are to family in many cases.
Barbies.
Barbies.
I think you probably hit us out of the park compared to you guys.
That's right. The way we socialize, all that. Yeah. We can talk about Barbies for a bit, but yeah, in a way, Australia is very, very, it's very Latin in that respect, But the main difference is the organization. Here in Australia, you've taken the best of the Europeans, the organization, the government system. Yes, there is corruption, but not to a point where it destroys a country. So everything works here. In Argentina, nothing works, which in a way makes you very resilient. Every rule in Argentina is there to be broken. That is just rule number 2. Rule number 1 is a rule. Rule number 2 is how we're going to break that rule. So it's incredibly chaotic.
This sounds similar to the story that I get told by my wife about Brazil, how she's like, they're the most loving and generous people, but they have their jeitinho brasileiro, which is like the Brazilian way. And it's sort of how to shortcut things or get around or get one over other people. And I'm like, it is such an interesting thing, which I guess, if you live in a country where there is a large amount of corruption and a large amount of class division, then quite often you need to kind of be somewhat selfishly thinking of you and yourself first and foremost to make sure that you've got enough for your family.
Yeah, the problem is when everyone thinks that way.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, nothing works. It's just becomes safe.
Do you think we take that for granted here in Australia? Do you think that we're kind of ignorant of that? Because I feel like when I talk to my wife about these things in Brazil, I felt totally like I have it easy. Like I was gifted by chance the upbringing I had, the parents that I had, the surroundings that I had, everything like that. And I really take it for granted because I have no other experiences. Whereas it sounds like my wife and potentially yourself went through quite a completely different experience growing up and
exactly
everything.
Right. Exactly right. When you don't know what it's to live outside in all those countries, even if you just travel, well, I think if you travel to those countries, it opens your eyes. You get to see, wow, yeah, I'm really lucky. I think people that travel and see the other side of the world, they understand what we've got here. But if you haven't left Australia, sure, I hear relatives or friends that haven't been outside abroad, and they talk about having to go to a hospital and having to wait for an hour to be seen by a doctor after being triaged. And I'm like, only an hour?
Cry me a river.
I know. It's just wonderful. And then you go in, you're seen by a doctor, and you got first world, services at your disposal. It's just amazing. And the travel industry, we had it pretty bad this year with all this COVID situation. And there comes the government with a job keeper and job seeker programs, which like them or hate them or agree with them or not on all of it, 100%. But it's there to help. And my family and my friends in Argentina, they've got none of that. So yeah, definitely we have it a lot easier here. But it's different. On the other side, everyone pays taxes here. You pay your taxes. Everyone pulls their way. So when everyone pulls in the same direction, is what you get. And when you don't have the corruption, corruption is what breaks everything. I don't want to get into a political conversation, but when you have a corrupt political system that just it's there to empower themselves, enrich themselves, and with complete disregard to the rest of the population, you end up in situations like we have in Latin America, and at a degree in other countries as well. But in Latin America, it's particularly bad, and it's not going to change, unfortunately, for a short foreseeable future.
So, what was it like when you decided to come to Australia? Was it that you had always wanted to come here? You met the girl, obviously, and then you guys had to decide. But then when you decided to come here, what was that sort of process like? Was it easier than you thought? Harder than you thought?
To be honest, it was a lot easier. Than I thought. I hear some of my friends that had immigrated here from England or Europe or whatever it might be, and they talk about how difficult the process is, that they're waiting on government paperwork for years, for months. It was such an easy process for me. I don't know, you too? Yeah, well,
my wife.
Yeah, see, right? Oh, for your wife. All right. Mine was incredibly easy. I mean, we were in England when I decided to come in. They gave me a set of papers that I needed to complete and information that I needed to provide to them. I gathered it, put it in. 3 months later, I had my residency for Australia. Great.
Wow.
A few years in, I decided to become a citizen. I went to the website, started the process, bim. A few months later, I am I'm an Australian citizen. So I personally found it incredibly easy. I'm not asking for a little thing. I'm asking to become a citizen in this country. So I'm expecting paperwork and a bit of a time to process these things. But in each case, it was only a matter of months, never a matter of years.
That's crazy. Did you? I guess this would have been about 12 years ago. I think that's when you were saying you arrived here.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Far out. Those were the days. We had to drop $7,500, and we're still waiting a year and a half later to even hear back
really?
after doing it. Yeah.
Wow. No, things have changed.
Yeah, that's it. I know we were late to the dinner party. But So what was the process like of becoming an Australian citizen emotionally? Did it feel like a really big deal? Did you feel like you were sort of betraying your roots or changing who you were or anything like that? What was that process like, mentally and emotionally?
Yeah, it's interesting. It was quite emotional. I'm privileged, and I'm not saying this just for saying it, but I'm honestly privileged to be here and to be called an Australian citizen. So to me, it was very important. By the time I became a citizen, my 3 kids have been born. I've got a good job here in Australia. I've got a good group of friends. So in a way, it really cemented this relationship that I had built here, this lifestyle that I built here in Australia. So it meant a great deal for me. I've always been very grateful. I've never taken it for granted. I never, always, I always thought it's a great deal that I'm asking to be a citizen in this country with so many people wanting to come, and so it was important to me. It's important. It was important as well. Again, because of the fact that my kids were born here as well. They are Australians, so now I feel like I'm Australian, as Australian as they are as well. So, it was quite nice, quite emotional. The ceremony was, I thought it was going to be tacky, but it was quite touching, and definitely very important, a day that I will always remember.
Yeah, brilliant. And so, do you feel as Australian as your kids, who I would imagine were born here, and they are, for all intents and purposes, as Australian as you, or as I am, being someone who was born here as well, or?
No, I don't know. I don't think so. I think that my kids are 100% Australian, and they, they quite enjoy, and they talk up to their friends those roots they have to Argentina. I see myself more as a 50-50. I think, my upbringing and my, growing up in Argentina made me what I am today. My relationships with my parents, my siblings, and my culture, my Argentinian culture, and all that made me what I am. So I don't feel like I'm detached to Argentina, to the Argentinian culture.
So you don't feel like you had to ever give something up in order to become Australian? It wasn't so much I replace one with the other. It was more of they come together and end up melting into a single thing.
To me, it's a bonus. It's an add-on. It's 2 for 1. I got the best of 2 beautiful worlds. I still love Argentina. I love to go there and visit friends, and I enjoy the spontaneity. Please correct me on that word. How do you say that?
Spontaneity.
Yeah, thank you. That one. The fact that I can drop by at a friend's house without notice, and I can have dinner with them without notice. That is really cool. That doesn't really happen here. You still need to call someone and even call a friends and make a booking to meet them in a couple of weeks because everyone is so busy. But there, you just can't do that, and it's fine.
Wow.
So yeah, I still feel Argentinian, very strongly Argentinian, but I also feel Australian.
So what was the process like of trying to pick up Australian English?
Oh.
I imagine you would have had a background learning English at school, and obviously with your partner when you were getting to know her, but I imagine it was a completely different level once you arrived on the ground in Australia and got first-hand experience with tradies, bogans, upper class, lower class, all kinds of Australians.
Yeah, no, to be honest, my introduction to Australian accent was much earlier than that. It was when I became a tour leader. When I became a tour leader, my English was absolute rubbish. It was just an accident that I got that job. In the first place, I said to you before, I was working at a youth hostel, and the person that contracted me to become a tour leader, she saw me working at the front desk of that youth hostel and giving out my speech in English. So I was telling people, "Hi, welcome to the hostel. This is your room. These are your sheets. This is a map of the city. This is what you can do, A, B, C, D." And that was it. That lady that contracted me saw me doing that.
And was like, "You nailed that." So.
And she thought I spoke English. What she didn't know is that if anyone asked me anything outside that speech, I would go, "Hi, welcome to the hostel. This is your bed. This is your sheet. This is the map of the city." So,
you know what that reminds me of? That reminds me of Fawlty Towers. Have you ever seen that with Manuel?
No, I haven't.
So I think he's from Barcelona. Manuel is the Fawlty Towers is with John Cleese, the comedian, and he owns a hotel. And they have this Barcelonian waiter, but he does that same sort of thing where he has his sort of spiel that he can say, the English that he can use, and then afterwards people will say, "Okay, so what about this and this? Do you think we can do this?" And he'll be like, "Care?"
Yeah.
And that's the sort of running joke.
I was just about that, and so from there I went to becoming a tour leader and having to speak to groups 24/7 in English. There I had 12 to 16 people relying on me to run the 12, 15, 20-day tours.
Jesus.
So I had to learn pretty quickly, and I always struggled with the Australian accent, especially my first group. The first group that I took solo was from Bolivia to Lima, and I had a group of 12 people, and 7 of them were Australians. And they gave me such a hard time on purpose.
Yeah, of course.
No, they were being Australians, they were just giving me a fair go, and it was all for the laughs, all well intended. But yeah, they kept talking to me in Australian slang, and I could not understand anything. I just kept turning to the English and Americans, going, "What did he say? What did she say?" And
they were probably like, "We got no idea."
I found farmers from Australia traveling with me that are absolutely impossible. I still really remember this big beard guy. He's a farmer. I would sit in front of him, stare at him, look at him intently, get him to talk to me, and I could not understand what he was saying. That was the most frustrating experience I ever had.
So it was that broad accent, the rural broad, like they seem
Yeah,
to turn diphthongs into like quadrathongs, those vowels where there's like 10 sounds in them instead of one or
it
two.
was really difficult. I felt like crying. I'm like, how am I going to understand this guy for the next 15, 20 days? And but anyway, but yeah. So you start fine tuning a little bit, and 50% of my groups were Australian. So
Really?
after a couple of years, you kind of you start getting the accent.
That was a good warm-up run, I guess, right? That got
Yeah,
you ready. You had good
yeah, yeah.
preparation.
I didn't find it too difficult. And then I guess when I told you I met my wife, I went to England, and in England I did a nearly a year and a half of full-on English class. English classes. So that helped a lot. The fact that my wife was Australian, her friends there were Australians. That
Yeah.
kind of, I had it pretty easy once I got here. I'm still learning. Gosh, I'm still learning. It amazes me how I've been learning speaking English for nearly 20 years now, and I still make so many mistakes. But will I ever get better? Will I ever be
Well,
flawless?
I face the same thing in Portuguese. I mean, I haven't been doing it for 20 years, but I've probably been doing it on and off for 5 years now. And it seems like it's that diminishing curve, diminishing returns curve. And you've gotten to the point, and I think I'm the same in Portuguese, of communication is effectively crystal clear when you're talking to me. There are very few mistakes that you're making that are so erroneous that I have no idea what you're saying, right? So there's like pronunciation mistakes, but then I communicate with you and it's effortless. I still understand 100% as if it was someone who was a native speaker of English. The thing is that it's all those slight problems, and then because they're not in the way of communication, you don't fix them because
Yeah,
they're
that's right.
not. It's like if you had bad technique as a tennis player, but you're still winning games, you're not going to fix the technique really, right? Unless it's causing you to lose games. And so you have to work out, I think, on a personal level, how much you care. Once communication's dealt with and you can get your point across, and you can have a full-time career, you've got a family, you've got friends, and none of that is impacted by the fact that you have an accent or that you make these mistakes, then it's kind of like, well, what, are you just trying to show off by improving all those things on top when it won't add anything objectively to your lived experience in Australia, right?
Yeah, fair enough. But
But yes, it's annoying. It's annoying that it's not easier to just be like, I just want to do another,
yeah,
an extra hour a week, and then in 2 years I'll sound like I was born here and I've been here for 50 years or something.
that's exactly right. And you nailed it. You can, if I sit down and I study, or if I study for a couple of hours a week, I
Mm-hmm.
would improve it 100%. It's just as you say, it's how much do I want it?
Well,
How
and it
much?
won't change your life. I think you've got the job, you've got the family, you've got you know
No,
friends and everything. So I don't think it would change your life to the point where it would be worth the amount of investment that you would have to put in.
no,
So
sure, but Peter, and I think many of your listeners will relate to this. As a foreigner, I don't know. I don't know if your listeners will, but I feel sometimes quite conscious about my accent and about
yeah,
making mistakes. I think that because I have an accent, I have to prove that that I can, that I'm as good as I can. I am quite self conscious of my accent and the mistakes, and I would love to be able to speak without any mistakes. Obviously, I don't would love it as much as to make me sit down and do extra studies. But yeah, I think that when you speak English as a second language and you live here in Australia, an English speaking country, I personally feel quite self-conscious many times when I'm talking at a job,
yeah.
at work, or with new friends, or when I'm having a phone conversation with a client. I really, those are the times when that chip falls.
I think there's a few things to unpack there because it is an interesting topic. I think one of them is the good thing, at least it seems on your behalf, is that you've never, based on what I know of you, it seems like you don't allow being nervous or self-conscious to hold you back in terms of interactions and using the language, which is the most important thing, right? Like it's almost the most tragic thing in the world for an English learner or a learner of anything to have fear of making an error hold them back from actually using the thing, or or trying to improve that thing. So at least that isn't a problem. It's all right to be self-conscious, because I think too, if you can use it in a healthy way that kind of drives you to improve, that's a really good thing. If you can harness that, I'm self-conscious of it, I notice my mistakes, I know I'm not perfect, but instead of going the route of, therefore I'm not going to use the language and I feel horrible because I'm, horrible at blah, 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 you end up in that negative spiral. You use the other way and you say, well, as a result, I'm going to keep working hard, I'm going to keep improving, and then aim to be better. But also, yeah, it's interesting how, and you can probably talk to this, how Australians perceive foreigners, because I've had a lot of foreign friends in Australia who seem to go one of two ways when they get asked where they're from. They'll either get really offended and be like, why is this person, wanting to be so nosy, and I'm sticking out again and people are noticing me. And then the other one is, oh my God, I love when people ask me where I'm from, because I get to share my experiences and my culture and everything like that. And it's kind of an opening into a relationship or communication with people that I wouldn't have otherwise spoken to. How do you sort of view that? Because that's the thing I like about accents too. When you have them, it's kind of like it adds more color to the exchanges that you have with people, and it makes them instantly fascinated.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely, yeah, and I agree. I like accents, and I don't mind accent, and I don't mind you have an accent. I don't mind you forever have an accent. How do I feel when I'm asked where I'm from? I don't mind it, and it comes a little bit to what we were talking about before. I'm still quite proud of being Argentinian. I got no problem saying that I'm Argentinian. I like it when people ask me where you're from. And I'm Argentinian. I'm quick to say that I'm from Mendoza, not from Buenos Aires. People from Buenos Aires have that.
I feel like only Argentinians would get that. I wouldn't. I'd be like, I don't know what that. I know those are two cities, but I don't know the difference.
No, poor porteños. They have these. They are known for being a little bit arrogant. So
this is like Sydney versus Melbourne.
I'm quick to disattach myself from porteños and go to that. I'm from Mendoza, but apart from that, no, I like it. I'd rather they ask me. When they ask me, we clear the air. We clear the. We know we're all on the same page. I'd rather they ask me and not just be guessing. Oh, where's he from? What does he have an accent? What? So no, I quite like it, and I've never had a problem with anyone asking me where you're from. It is particularly interesting, and I am particularly glad that this comes out straight away when I am on a work phone call to a client, because sometimes they think, an accent, the call must be somewhere in India or in Sri Lanka, and with that comes that perception of poor service. So whenever they ask me, I say, "Oh, I'm from Argentina, but working here in our Melbourne offices." But yeah, that's the only thing, and it makes me a little bit embarrassed to say that. Sometimes we associate Indian or Sri Lankan accent with what do you call them? Call centers and poor service and the likes, because in many cases it's not. But
what's a stereotype? Yeah,
a stereotype, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So, how did you find adapting to a culture in Australia? Was that a big change from Argentinian culture? Like, did it? One of the big things that I get told by followers is that they find it difficult to first understand Australian humor, especially the men. So if they came here, an example is one of my mates, William, who's from Brazil, came to Australia, ended up getting a job as a tradie, a carpenter here, and was working with a bunch of blokes who would always be hanging shit on him, is the informal, expression for teasing him, making fun of him all the time.
Yeah.
And I was trying to tell him at the time, obviously there's a limit to where that aspect of the culture can be bullying and horrible, but quite often it's mateship, and they're trying to sort of develop a bond with you and see, can they make fun of you and then you make fun of them, and it becomes a sort of a bonding thing. And after I think he learnt about that and went back to work and had a different sort of view of it, it completely changed his interactions with these people, and he kind of got, the culture like that is it's like that here, and this is how it works. So did you have any sort of difficulties when you came first to Australia getting used to any differences like that, or did you slide in pretty easily?
It's fading pretty easily, to be honest. And uh, yeah, I guess I guess but you were talking about tradies and that kind of jobs, and I think that kind of environment, it's more likely that you're going to face that kind of treatment.
100%.
I've always been in the travel industry, and I've only been surrounded by lovely, beautiful people since day one. From my first job at STA, then at Intrepid, and now I'm here. To be honest, I've been so lucky in that respect. All the people I've dealt with have been absolutely beautiful. No one ever made me feel out of place or discriminated in any way. I've been super lucky in that respect. The difference, the main difference, I found it in socializing. And whilst yes, here in Australia people are very friendly and they catch ups and meetings and so on, and yeah, parties at the park and this and that, it's all organized a long time in advance. That kills me.
It lacks that spontaneity, huh? You can't just show up here and boom, let's do it.
But it just doesn't happen. At least it didn't happen in growing up. Pete, growing up, it would be we were kids and we would be waiting to see if we're going on holidays for 15 days to Chile, right? An overseas trip to Chile for 15 days. Are we gonna go? And because the situation is so changing and so fluid there, we will never know until 2 days before we went.
Damn.
Right? Like that kind of thing. My dad will come one day and go, "Yes, I got paid. We're going to Chile in 2 days." And we go, "Yes, let's get packing," and off we go.
All right, so you really are living on the edge of your seat, right? By the seat of your pants. Yeah.
But honestly, and then I would be bored at home and I would just jump on my bike and go and visit a friend. And, if he was about, we'll sit down and have a mate and coffee and have a chat and whatever it might be. But I never had the need to call someone and say, "Hey, I'm going to go and see you. Are you there?" I'll just go. If he's there, he's there. If not, I'll keep going. I don't know.
That's how my childhood was when I was
really?
a kid. Yeah, 100%. But it changes once you become an adult, I think. And I don't know, I was going to bring this up. I was thinking of it while you were saying that. I don't know how much social media has impacted that. Because obviously probably at the time that you were doing this, I would have been, when you were a teenager, I was probably a young kid. But we didn't have the internet. I didn't have phones, and so you would just have to kind of go and knock on the door of the kids in the neighborhood to see if they were there. There was no, you could probably ring them if you really wanted to, but again, you wouldn't bother, you just show up. But I miss that, and I was saying that to my dad the other day. I'm like, you don't realize how awesome primary school, high school, and even university is, because you've got shitloads of people all about the same age at the same place, and you just effectively get to socialize all the time. And then after school or after uni or even during uni at lunchtime and stuff, you just kind of, who's around? Let's go hang out. Let's just do this. Oh, let's go to the pub. Screw it. And there's you hadn't planned anything. But now as an adult, you're kind of like, I have to ring my mates, and some of them have kids, some of them don't. And I'll be like, "Do you want to catch up today?" "No, I can't." "All right, we'll do it in 3 weeks on a Sunday when, you've got 2 hours of spare time." And you're kind of like, fuck this. Like, I miss the day where you could just be like, everyone's going to this one place. There's going to be 10 of us and we're all hanging out together.
Yes, and you're right, of course. But then I still see it with my sister. She's on her 30s. She's got 3 kids, and I would see the way, for example, that she organizes her kids' birthday parties. On a Wednesday, she would send the invitation to everyone to come home on the Saturday, and the invitation would be from what time is the party? At 2 in the afternoon. What time will finish? It's like, what do you mean?
When everyone leaves.
That's right. It's like, what kind of question is that? And invitation will go on a Wednesday, and everyone will be home on a Saturday. And if you have another plan, you change it, you amend it, or whatever. If you can go, you go. If you oh yeah, no worries. I'll be there at 6 in the after. At 6 p.m. 6 in the afternoon. Yeah, no worries. The party starts at 2, but you'll be here at 6. Easy, done. So in many ways, there is still a lot of spontaneity in the way they socialize in Argentina, and they're the same in most of Latin America still, and that's something that I miss here. That and the mountains. I miss the mountains.
You were telling me the other day, yeah.
live right next to the Andes, on the foot of 5,000-6,000 meter mountains.
I can't imagine. So that's for context with anyone listening who doesn't know much about geology in Australia. I think Kosciuszko, is it Kosciuszko, the mountain? Mount Kosciuszko is
Yeah.
2,400 meters, and you'll probably be like, ah, that's nothing. So you had mountains that were literally twice the height of that at your doorstep.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's right. Nearly 3 times. Aconcagua is the highest
Wow.
mountain there, and nearly 7,000 meters is the highest
Good
mountain
God.
in the Americas. And so, yeah, to have that playground there,
I
it's
can't
just
imagine.
a couple of hours drive, and you are in the mountains, and you can go hiking for 3 days and be in the middle of the Andes. It's pretty cool.
So you actually miss more the geography or the geology of the place more so than the culture itself or anything like that, or the food or.
Yes. Look, I miss my immediate family a hell of a lot for obvious reasons. But yeah, the mountains. I know that going mountain climbing involved, because it means going with friends to the mountains, and that mateship, that support, climbing for 2 or 3 days, being in the middle of the Andes on your own, no communication. So no, it's also a bit of my culture, of who I am. So yeah, I miss that part. You mentioned food. Do I miss food in Argentina? No, I think after living here for 20 years, food is pretty rubbish in Argentina. Apart from steak, we do steak, we do barbecues better than anyone in the world.
So why
Barbecue.
is that? Tell me, why is that? Why are Argentinian barbecues so good, but the rest of their food, according to you, is rubbish? What are they getting right with barbecues that they're getting wrong with food in general?
Firstly, it's a quality of the meat, right? We eat
Mm-hmm.
calf, right? So the meat is tender, and yeah, very 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 tender. And also we eat all of it. We eat the ribs, with the intestines, and all those parts that here
The
goes.
offal, yeah, the
Yeah,
organs.
that's right. And it's the amount of food, and the way it's cooked, on a very slow cooked on a bit of charcoal. And uh, so yeah, honestly, the barbecues in Argentina, I just haven't tried anything else anywhere else. Brazil is very very close, or the same, the way
Mm-hmm.
they worship the meat, and the way they cook it, and the way
I
they
had
eat.
no respect for the barbecues from South America until I met my wife and she put me onto some of the Brazilian stuff. And then going down that rabbit hole on YouTube, learning about Brazilian barbecue, you start to see the Argentinian barbecues and you're like, holy crap. Because I've seen some videos of you guys getting a full cow, effectively, opening it up, emptying it out, and then you just butterfly the cow, like split it open, and the entire thing is kind of suspended above coals on the ground.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you have a party and everyone eats the entire thing, and you're like, Jesus Christ, for any person, that's probably like 2 years worth of meat.
I know. No, the amount of meat we consume in Argentina is ridiculous. Mind you, is quite expensive these days. But anyway, but apart from that, we eat a lot of we're very bland. We eat a lot of pasta. We eat a lot of rice, chicken, veggies. Honestly, I never. Maybe it's just me and my family, but I never had chili, or I never had a spicy food until I left Argentina. So yeah, food, the day-to-day food seems to be very very simple. You go out to a restaurant, and you go through the menu, and you got raviolis, pastas, soups, and meats, and then you got always your empanadas, or it's just the same. It's the same. Whereas here we are so spoiled with choices: Indian, Thai,
Mm-hmm.
uh, Burmese, whatever you name it. You got all the cuisines here.
I think it was you that I was talking to about that, right? Being raised on having curries all the time and Vietnamese food and Mexican food, and thinking this is just the norm because you can just go to the supermarket and they have effectively pre-packaged, here's your empanadas, here's your enchiladas, you just have to heat it up and add this to this, and then bam, it's done. And so it was funny growing up, at least for me. My grandparents were probably in a completely different situation because they were born in the 1930s. But for me as a child, it was always but normal food is from everywhere. You know, it isn't just 3 veg and a roast lamb or something, which is what my grandparents still cook for something like Christmas dinner.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see how much that's changed as a result of migration, and that we've kind of gotten the best from all of these different communities all over the world, and it's just been mixed in there.
Yeah.
Before I let you go, can you talk a bit about what it's like developing a social group once you move to somewhere like Australia? Because that's another thing that a lot of my listeners tend to talk to me about and have trouble with. They're kind of like, how do I meet other Australians or other people in Australia? Because of the cultural difference, the language difference. Were there barriers that you faced, or certain ways that you successfully overcame difficulties in developing a social group and finding some really good friends that were Australian?
Look, again, I don't think I ever had too many difficulties making friends. I wouldn't say that my social network, my social network is quite wide, but I don't think I have a lot of very close friends. That said, I personally think that making friends and having social groups here is just about the same as anywhere. You have to start by being a friend yourself. You know, you need to start by making the effort and contacting people and inviting them over, and inviting and proposing catch-ups and proposing to go out with them and to do activities and to find common ground. You have to start by being a friend. If you want to have friends, if you want to have big social group, you need to start by being a friend yourself and start developing those networks, those friendships. You know, by being being a migrant, what means is that you lost those early years. You know, primary school, high school, you know, university,
where it was done for you, right?
That's right. You know, how many of your friends are still from high school, university?
More than my wife's. Yeah, more than my wife's.
Well, there you go. You see, and but when you leave all that behind, you know, it's hard to. I can see why people find it difficult. It's hard to start that from scratch.
It's funny, I think, to interrupt you though, I think it's funny how much we forget what it's like making new friends, because you forget how much work it is. I mean, it kind of, the situations where you can make friends are everywhere when you're young, because you're at school and it's like, here's 100 kids in your grade, you know, most of them you're not going to like, but you're going to like a whole bunch, you know, and the same with university and everything. But then when you get older, even I'm struggling with that currently. We've moved around a bit and I've got very young children. And for instance, we just clicked with the neighbors. We finally sucked it up. I convinced Kel to go over there because our son Noah, he noticed that they had a puppy golden retriever or a Labrador, and I was like, go and just take Noah over there and play with him through the fence or something. He'd be fine. And she went over and she's like, man, I met the neighbors. The neighbors are amazing, and we're going to get them to come over and have dinner. But I think that's what I was saying. She's very introverted usually, and I was saying to her, like, that's how you end up making all these friends. You tell me sometimes, I'm saying to my wife, you know, oh, I don't have any friends here. And I'm like, we forget how much you have to put in work and start inviting people over and putting yourself in situations where you are meeting new people all the time. And so even with these neighbors, they came over, we had a great time, but now I'm like conscious of the fact that we need to follow that up, or it will just drift away and you won't see those people again. So you need to keep...
Exactly.
Keep in touch, contact.
Exactly. To the point I was making before, it's work, and you need to work on those aspects with any relationships. You need to work on those relationships, and you need to start them and drive them, and you know, they'll become a point where they drive themselves. But to start with, you need to put in the miles. And again, I speak with every relationship, and 20 years on, married to a person, and you know, still every day you need to work on those relationships. I think friendships is the same, you shouldn't just put it down and make the excuses that you are an immigrant and you can't have friends, or it's difficult to have friends. It's the same everywhere.
That's the easy way out. I'm the same. I have that. You have that voice in your head that just says, "Oh, it's too hard. You know, I can't do it. I'd never be able to do it." And you're like, "Just kill it, and just try." You know, you got nothing to lose.
As you asked me before, how much does it matter to you? If it really matters to you, you know, sit down, work on them, try.
Lastly, what's it like being married to an Australian? You know, positives, negatives. Is it worthwhile? I've never done it, so.
Definitely worthwhile. I got the lottery with my wife. It's a wonderful.
She told you that, or you told her that?
No. Yeah, and now as I'm saying this, I'm feeling like a bit guilty because I probably haven't told her this in a long time. But she's just wonderful, and she really personifies, I think, the best of Australian culture. She's friendly and easygoing, but also structured and organized, and and correct. If it's A, it's A. If the rule is B, it's B. And I'm like, no, but what about it? No, that's the rule. So no, yeah, absolutely, yeah. I would do it again.
I won't tell her that. Well, Martin Ruffo, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. How can people find out more about you and what you do? Feel free to plug away.
Just join our website at www.inspiringvacations.com.au, or just shoot me an email on martin.ruffo@inspiringvacations.com.
Awesome. Are there good deals on there for people traveling around Australia as well as obviously the rest of the world?
Exactly right. Yeah, we've got great deals currently on domestic packages within Australia. It's amazing. To be honest, we didn't do domestic travel until COVID hit, and
jumped on the opportunity. You're like, everyone's going to be staying home for a while, so we need to get some options out here.
That's right. But it's been personally, it's been an eye opener. There's just so many amazing destinations to see in Australia in so many different ways. Touring, small groups, big groups, cruise, by train, by bus, it's just a whole world out there that I came to discover thanks to this COVID, and people are taking it up. People are going. They're not going, oh, COVID, boo, I'm gonna see that. No, people are going domestically. They're people are booking trips to go to Kakadu, Kimberley's, Tasmania, the Red Centre. It's booking really, really quickly, and it's selling quite well. So yeah, that's a great thing about Australia as well. It's like, we can't go there. Never mind, we go in here.
Just drive. Yeah.
Go. Just do it. Loving
awesome. That. Well, Martin, thank you so much. We'll have to have you on again in the future. Thank you.
Anytime if you want to. I'll be here.
Awesome.